Welcome back and thank you for staying with Bottomline Africa. United Nations Volunteers East and Southern Africa Regional Office, together with Government of Kenya, One Campaign, Kenya Red Cross, VSO Kenya, and various volunteer-involving organizations are set to host the first ever Regional Volunteer Awards Festival during the International Volunteer Day, which is tomorrow. Now, the festival shall directly unite over 10,000 formal and informal volunteers and partners from across East and Southern Africa region to showcase the immense value of volunteering, strengthening volunteering platforms towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals in the region. Now in studio to talk about more of this, to my immediate left is Njoya Tikum, who is the UN Volunteers Regional Manager for East and Southern Africa, and next to him is none other than Doreen Nini Nahazwe, who is from the African Union and East African Director, One Campaign. Thank you very much for making time to join. Did I get your names right?
Yes.
I did, okay.
Thank you.
So I'll start with you, Njoya.
Okay.
Volunteerism is a very unique way of bringing people together to attain the SDGs. Tell us about that.
Well, thank you, Ashley, for having us in studio. I am from the United Nations Volunteers Program, as you've rightly said. The agency was created in the 1970s to help open space for those who wanted to go back and give to communities in pursuit of addressing some of the development challenges that we face at the time. And the organization has morphed into a global organization that now allows people from all over the world to cross-fertilize their experiences. I think the primary objective of volunteerism is to accelerate solutions to development challenges globally. In East and Southern Africa, we have challenges from security, food insecurity, which you mentioned today, to climate change, to internally displaced people, and to inequality. Our hope is that volunteerism provides an accelerating platform for those who want to come back and help support government, support communities in addressing some of these challenges.
All right, I'll just come to you, Doreen. One Campaign is one of the partners. Before we get to the challenges and how exactly we get to solve them through volunteering, just tell us about your company.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for this invitation. We are happy to be here. So One Campaign is an advocacy and campaign organization of millions of people, supporters who are taking action to end extreme poverty in the world. And these millions of supporters are basically volunteers in their community. They are from all walks of life, who are lobbying political leaders, running grassroots campaign, and holding leaders accountable. And they call for more investment in key areas like agriculture to achieve food security that he just mentioned, more investment in education. I think we can never overemphasize the importance of education. Also, more investment in health. And that's why for us it was important to join hands with the UNV because we want to celebrate these amazing people who are doing incredible work in their communities and actually are the unsung heroes in our communities. So we want to encourage them to do more, and that's why we partnered for the celebration of tomorrow's event.
All right, so how exactly does it work? So if I want to be a volunteer, do I approach you? Do you approach me? Okay, well, volunteer, I approach you. And then what is the whole process?
Well, primarily when we were created, we were given two mandates. One is to mobilize more young people, also old people, let me call it that way, and bring them as additional capacity support to the UN funds and agencies and mission settings. So what we do is we do have a global portal, we call it a talent pool, where you can go on there and upload your resume. But we also have direct calls where from time to time we advertise positions. But primarily, we recruit through the global portal, the global talent pool. You upload your resume, and each time there is an opportunity to serve one of the UN agencies, we would go there and seek your availability to serve. The second mandate is obviously to support our member states, support the countries that we serve, develop their own national volunteerism infrastructures. And Kenya being one of the most vibrant in the region, what we do is that we work with them to try and see if the regulatory frameworks are in place to allow for volunteerism to strive in the country. What my sister Doreen has mentioned would not be possible if the right regulatory frameworks are not in place. So we provide both the human capacity support to our UN agencies, but we also work with government to open that space.
So is there like a specific criteria that you will post in the portal, maybe like a platform that we are requesting for, let's say, a journalist, a doctor, and so on, so on?
Well, before coming here, I was just looking for at an advertisement that was posted, looking for a communication specialist to serve and support one of our agencies in Kenya. Primarily, we have different categories of volunteers. We have the younger volunteers, those we consider the youth volunteers, and they can come in from the ages of 18 to 29. And for that, we say they do not need to have the experience. We just want to offer them a space to come in and build the skills that are required. But the more seasoned volunteers are usually those above 25 years old. We call them the specialists. And for these, we would require you to have at least 2 to 3 years of work experience to come in and also support any of the agencies. We have just recently introduced something called the expert modality, because we realize that we have a lot of medical doctors on the continent who go on retirement, but are still willing to go back and serve. We have a medical doctor in South Sudan who is 73 years old and who is helping train doctors in that country. In Tanzania, we're trying to deploy a similar experience. So we created that modality to also allow senior experts to come in and volunteer even after they've retired.
All right. So awareness is one of the key issues that we have, because there are so many people out here who would like to volunteer, but they do not know of such organizations or such platforms. In that case, how do you create awareness story?
Okay, so we run campaigns, as I said earlier on, and we call different people from walks of life to join on our website, one.org, and they have the ability to sign up to take action in different campaigns that we are running. But again, what we do is to equip these young people with the skills they need to go out there to run this campaign, to lobby these political leaders. So we do a lot of awareness through the talent that we work with. Tomorrow we'll have artists and musicians who will be joining us to celebrate this day, and through them we put out the information out there. And we also have a champions program out of the members and volunteers that we have, and especially for Kenya and East Africa, I would like to take this opportunity to announce that next year we'll have about 15 champions that are going to be picked in East Africa and who will be taken to the African Union Summit to be able to lobby these heads of state who will be meeting there. So we raise a lot of awareness through partners that we work with, UNV, the artists, and different organizations.
All right, so from where you sit or where you stand, what is the immense value of volunteering?
Volunteers are really amazing. They move the needle. We know that in our organization and in Africa, we have most of our population are young people. We are 1.2 billion, and we are set to double by 2050. And we have this demographic dividend that we need really to utilize. So it's important, because if we want to achieve the SDGs, we really need people at the forefront of this, and we need to put pressure on our government to do the right thing. So it's really important to encourage people to ask, to make their ask known to the leaders. Nobody will make things for us. We have to take things in our own hands. That's why it's important to really volunteer in our communities.
All right. So the focus of this year is the SDG number 10, which is reduced inequality. And the slogan for this year's campaign shall be volunteer for inclusion. How do you promote volunteering for inclusion? Well,
again, actually, think about it. Volunteers are the people who can connect our communities and our societies. When we develop, or when governments develop their national plans or their national development plans, they seek to look for people who can bring communities into the dialogue, into the conversation on how you set up a national development plan. They also seek, most times, to look at communities that are traditionally left out of such processes, right? Persons living with disability, for example, or women, or young youth in the communities. We think that volunteerism is that glue. It's the glue that can allow our government to connect with their communities and our communities to connect with government. I'll give you a very simple example. In Kakuma, where I visited not too long ago, I met a young man called Otieno, whose job as a volunteer was just to organize community dialogues between the host community and the refugees to help diffuse tension. Just today, we had a conversation with a young man called Dr. Harold, who has been able to tap the internet from the moon and is providing free services to counties across the country. So volunteerism for an inclusive future postulate that without volunteers, you would have a future that is not inclusive to an extent. But it also says that for us to achieve the sustainable development goal, precisely that on equality and inclusion, you need people who are willing to give back. Globally, we have 1 billion people volunteering. In Africa, the figure, comes down to about 400. But this, by no way, is reflective of those who are volunteering informally that we cannot capture. If you think about 1 billion people volunteering, of the 7 billion people that we have, globally, that's a workforce of almost 4%. And the GDP for a country alone would probably be about 2%. So it is a huge workforce that we are saying we use to tap into. The last part is that most times, we had a conversation today where young people were almost middle of the entire room. Most times, young people feel left out of development processes in our country. Volunteerism, especially with information and communication technology nowadays, volunteerism allows these young people to bring their voices in all of these processes: peace, security, humanitarian, political processes. And so that's the inclusion part that we're pushing.
But there's a difference between bringing my voices and making sure my voice will be heard. So that's also a challenge. Yes, youth are out there. Yes, youth are speaking, but are the voices being heard? Maybe you can join me.
Yes, and actually what we do at One Campaign is to make sure that we amplify the voices of these young people, and we give them an opportunity to sit at the table, because young people are always involved in different things, but we are not sure that their voices are heard. And for One Campaign, we make sure we bring them to the African Union Heads of State Summit, where they are given an opportunity to speak. We are calling the African Union to open the space, more space for these young people to interact with their leaders. And the young people, we are telling them, don't complain, but organize yourself. Let's get together and make your ask heard. So it's all about organizing, doing it the proper way, and then we'll be able to get our voices heard. All
right, so tomorrow it's the first ever Regional Volunteer Awards Festival. What should we expect even as we conclude?
Well, it's going to be very exciting, I have to say. We have been able to shortlist or identify champions from 15 other countries in the sub-region, so from Kenya right down to Namibia. They are already in Nairobi. They would be part of that celebration, but also in the past, and I think we agree with One Campaign and the government of Kenya, that in the past we have always celebrated volunteers in hotel rooms, in hotel conference rooms and things like that. And we thought we should take it out. We should have a festival where we celebrate the efforts that people put to transform their communities. Thanks to our One Campaign champions, they've been able to bring in some incredible artists. I know that young people love, I love art, musicians.
Who will be there?
Kidum among one.
Is this Fiona?
Chris Martin from Jamaica.
Martin also.
From Jamaica. So if you wanted to listen to a Jamaican musician, tomorrow is your day. But I think the big aim is to sensitize the public even more for the need for all of us to go out and do more in our community. So Nairobi Railway Club tomorrow. We're there from morning till evening. We would also be recognizing 100 volunteers across the continent.
So the rain shall not stop the celebration.
Inshallah.
Okay. All right. So as we conclude, allow me to give you the last say. For those watching right now and they would really want to volunteer, but they need that extra push, what would you tell them?
I'm going to call them to join One Campaign, to go on our website, www.one.org, because we really equip young people with the skills they need to go out in their communities and do the volunteer work, but also the UNV volunteers. So please do join our organization and we will direct you on how to conduct this.
All right. Thank you very much, Doreen Nini Nahazwe. I got it.
Oh, perfect.
From Africa Union and East Africa, she's the director of One Campaign. And Njoya Tikum, UN Volunteers Regional Manager for Eastern